Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Oh man, it's been an interesting last couple of days. Had some conversations, had some bad stuff happen, had some good stuff happen. So last couple of days been sort of interesting. I am recording this before, and I am trying to make it clear before all the Flash silliness lands. Mainly because I know like the next few weeks are just going to be dedicated to check this out. Blah, 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 blah. And then definitely the following week, you already know it's going to be set review and stuff like that. So anyway, today's show is I'm going to talk about two things in particular. One is learning how to let me rephrase this before I even start. Knowing the different types of number one players in your venue and try to identify who those players are. And the second is how to preserve yourself in having fun in the midst of people just being hyper aggressive in play. And that a little bit is a big shout out to the listener JC in lapel. So got that second part. So first we're going to say is like how to identify different types of number ones in a venue. And the number two topic of today's show is just how to have fun in the midst of a hyper aggressive or hyper meta is a better way of putting venue. All right. So let's get into it. The main reason that I sort of came up with this topic idea is for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, I think a lot of folks just think you magically arrive and it's like, poof, you're number one. I also think number two is that a lot of folks don't realize the type of number ones that are in their venue and just think like, if I could only be like him and then I can overthrow him and then I will win. And then that's not necessarily the case because I taught you how to become better. But with that, it also requires you to sort of take some time and then say, okay, let's take a moment and look at this situation and see what this means and see really what type of player this person is. Because after I sort of break some things down, you might actually realize that the people that you're going against may or may not be as strong as you think they are. So I'm going to first start looking at the negative number ones and then the positive number ones and try to show you a little bit of degrees in between. The first type of number one is most common that people go against. And again, if you don't know what I mean by number ones, go back to the show where I talk about numbers 1, 2, and 3, and you're a 4. You know, on a scale on 1 through 10, 1, 2, 3 are the top of the venue, and you're stuck in 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10 are the casual people and the haters many times. But that's, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. It's definitely going to be sometime in June. So look for it around then. June, July, because I know I put it out before Gen Con. Okay, so let's go back into it. The first type of number one is really the most common. And when I tell you this type of number one, don't get offended. He is the king of the mole people. When I mean that is you're a small group of very weak players overall, and he just happens to be good. Or let me phrase that. He just happens to be better than the rest of you all. And usually what happens is if some people, take some time, get some mentoring, and then just, study, they usually beat this type of number one. But this is overall in all my heroclix endeavors and going out there, this is usually the common number one. The rest of your venue, including yourself, suck. I know that sounds bad. You're like, oh my gosh, Dark Logos, how dare you say I suck? And here's why, when the easiest way to identify this. When people from another venue come in, you all lose, including your number one. And your number one very rarely defeats outsiders. That's the number one way of figuring out if you have a King of the Mole Man number one in your venue. This is the easiest one to overthrow, and in the long run, you'll thank me because you won't be as afraid of sharks. Just being honest. So the next type of number one is what I like to call the natural talent. The natural, and you might say, well, why is that a negative? And you'll see here in a second. The natural talent just somehow is able to see certain things that works explicitly with their play style and is able to utilize those elements consistently. It's nothing in and of themselves that's necessarily teachable nor repeatable. Okay. And so they become some of the tougher ones to analyze, but they're also more prone to meta missteps. Okay. For example, my previous student, Silent Screen, went against when I was teaching him, a former judge. And this former judge is pretty much what I would call a natural mixed in with a douchebaggery. And we'll get into that guy later. Okay. And so this guy would pick pieces that fit with his play style, but weren't necessarily meta, but because he could understand how his play style worked and his tempo and timings, and they're just naturally innate in him, he was able to beat a whole bunch of other people, but also spout out bad advice. And the main reason you can tell, the naturals is that when they speak their advice and you listen to them, and then when you test out what they say, it completely falls apart. Just completely falls apart. Okay, but going back to Silent Scream anyway, I told him, this guy's been pretty much, being mean to you and you're getting tired of it. And I'm like, just flat out challenge him. Just say, yo, show up at this time at the venue before the game. I'll have a 300-point team. You bring a 300-point team, bring your most devastating meta team, and then go at it. So Silent Scream and I worked on his team, and he went out there and just decimated this dude. Like, so much so that they didn't even go and finish the game. He just quit. Okay. Now, you might be saying, like, well, Dark Logos, that's not fun for the other guy. Well, the thing is the natural really has a hard time taking in lessons from others. Not necessarily saying that they have to completely change everything in their play style, but because their internal monologue of how things work is so clear and so crisp to them, and they have enough personal positive reinforcement, it's really hard to teach them something new, let alone cross-applying a difference to that natural instinct. And so to them, as odd as this may sound, by you proposing new information to them that contradicts their own experience, it's attack on their personhood. That's why they'll jab at you verbally or just say you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Okay. The third type of number one is really the most common. And he's the most common because this person doesn't have anybody else in life that A, respects them, B, has no place to exercise any sort of authority, and C, has some issues about themselves in which winning in heroclix is the total sum of their positive self-esteem. Okay, this is usually what causes douchebaggery. Okay, this is usually also the cause of bullying as well, but mainly this is the cause of douchebaggery number ones. Now, here's the thing. Because of their low self-esteem and them finding victories and winning, they then become hyper confident, and this confidence allows them to act decisively. A lot of times people flounder and burn the clock and don't know what they're doing. But a douchebag will just go in and say, like, shoot, whatever I'm doing is awesome. Boom, 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 boom. Check this out. Bam, I won. What's up, son? And so what puts people off is A, the excessive confidence. And there's nothing wrong with excessive confidence. I want you, when you play, to have confidence. There's another, it's another thing to say that your confidence has to come at the cost of belittling others and be like, you don't know Jack. You don't know what's up. I slap you down. Watch this. You know, I hit you with my pimp hand. Stuff like that. Whenever I hear those things, those are usually the guys that I'm like, dear Lord, deliver them into my hands so that I can beat them down, and I will act oh so humbly afterward. Thank you. And so those are usually the easy number ones to get rid of. But the main thing that sort of throws them off is a losing streak. Because remember, this is their sole reinforcement of their ego. And then second of all, serious continual challenge. So you can deflate them easily to a number 2 and a number 3 if you and a couple of buddies start putting up a fight. If they don't have an easy 2 rounds anymore, and they have to struggle in round 1 and struggle in round 2 and struggle in round 3, win or no win in the final tournament, they are going to deflate really fast. Because the main thing that becomes an advantage in any sort of tactical game is decisiveness. If you are not decisive, and I am snapping my fingers when I say decisive, you will fail in heroclix and tactical games and other stuff in life. People do not like indecisive people. Really, just ask yourself, when's the last time that you really, really liked somebody that was so indecisive, like picking ice cream, for example? The person in front of you was indecisive in picking ice cream. You're sitting there, it's like, I want my freaking cheesecake chunk chocolate chip ice cream, and this fool up here can't decide between the coffee caramel and the sherbet. This dude needs to go. I'm about to drop kick him in the face. No one says to themselves, you know what? That guy has an important decision to make. Let him take his time. Forget the fact that he's screwing over my life and that I'm losing precious seconds and moments. This is a heavy decision to make. No one looks at a person like that that's indecisive as a positive trait. No one. Okay? So coming back, If we look at why you struggle against that type of number 1 guy in your venue, pure and simple, you may lack the ability to make decisions with confidence. And that, to an extent, comes with gaining experience. But also, I would tell you, if you have that problem, go with your first gut check, screw everything else. And until you build up your knowledge base, just go with your first gut. Look at something, make some calculations, then go with your first gut check. Okay, just do that. Okay. All right. The next type of number 1 is the most difficult and the simplest to deal with. And you might say that's an oxymoron, and it sort of is. Is the Scrooge McDuck number 1. And I can't copyright that, but if you want to use that, it's the Scrooge McDuck number 1. Is the person that's able to buy whatever they want and then is sort of bitter, like, blah, 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 blah. I don't need the prize, blah, 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 but, you know, I just like stomping you in the face, blah, 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 blah. Money, blah, 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 blah. Those are the number 1s that I'm like, oh, okay, I already know how this is going to go. Because the moment that they look at a set, they're like, I'm going to buy this super new cannon and this super new cannon and this super new cannon. You usually could tell those people because they buy a bunch of tent poles and all they do is play with chases. It's like, look at me. My team is worth $500 when I plop it down. You know, it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, you have 15 con exclusives in a 1,000-point game. Good for you, man. Good for you. Okay, so those type of players are in every game, and to some extent, it's more or less. But usually what happens when people try to buy wins, they usually are using the pieces to compensate for their lack of skill. Sometimes they can have a degree of skill, but in all, most of the time, they're using the figures to compensate for the lack of skill. And you can always tell this type of number 1 player because they really don't play anything that complicated. They play very powerful and direct effects that have no layering whatsoever. Pure and simple. And a lot of folks don't notice notice that at all until it's too late, and then they've lost that person several times and they get, just ticked off. And so the main thing I will say with that type of number one, and again, I'm saying it's a negative. The main problem with dealing with that type of number one is you cannot counter their money. And a lot of people, when they see this, they think, if I only had the super job where I could throw all my money at heroclix, then I would beat them too. No, really not. You just need to study more. Usually these people have busy lives and they throw money at stuff to solve their problem because they have other things that dominate their time. That's why I said you can definitely spot this type of number one, that they have figures with direct, very direct, and powerful effects and no nuance of play. Okay. So that number one in particular, I really don't get mad at them until they get snippy. And then I just put in more work. They inspire me to put in like 4 hours, 5 hours on a team. And then I come and crush them with a bunch of comments and be like, yo, what's up, son? The other interesting thing is as well, is that if you start becoming a more skillful player, the one thing that you can tell that you're getting under the number one skin is that when that's the money bag Scrooge McDuck, they'll start saying, well, of course he won. Brian has no life and all he does is study heroclix. He listens to those podcasts and that's all he does all day because he doesn't have a life. I'm not promoting not having a life. I've never promoted that, but I will say this: you can definitely tell when they start saying statements like that they fear you. That's the fear you statements. Oh, they have no life, because the idea is to mentally intimidate you, to shame you out of a practice that is threatening to them. That's it. It's just to shame you out of a practice that's threatening to them. Okay. So, going on, you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I encounter a lot of those guys at my venue. Okay. So what are the positive number ones? The positive number ones are defeatable, but I'm going to say, in all honesty, they are more scary because, they're a little bit more legitimate. Okay. So that means that yes, you have to put in work. So if you have a Mole King and Scrooge McDuck and douchebaggery, don't worry about them. You'll in time you will beat them. In time you will beat them and beat them definitively. Okay, as long as you follow the steps of growth, you keep your heroclix notebook up, you keep putting time in your team design, you're looking at meta analysis. As long as you're doing that. And you're not trying to be, a clone warrior, you're good. And I usually say this: if people are winning by net decking and doing Attack of the Clones, they're really nothing to be that scared about, because all you have to do is run counter meta. They're really not a number one player. They're a fall one. They're a fall one, and that's even worse than being, a gnome king. It's just a mole king. That's even worse. Okay. So the number ones, legit number ones that you have to be concerned about, and I'm not going to say be afraid of, because I'm never going to tell you be afraid of these people. Never be afraid of competition. If someone's like, you're going to die, that's a little something to be concerned about. But you're never going to face a game where it's like, you will die if you do not win these next 3 rounds of heroclix. You're not put in some sort of Hunger Games type, situation. But okay, sort of going, let's get into it. All right. The following number ones are probably the most legitimate, for you to think about. Okay. First off, the student of the game guy. The student of the game guy is the one that just takes his time and he goes through before the set is released, and he's on HC Realms looking at the stuff that's just coming out. He's like, boom, 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 boom. I like this. I like that. And then he's starting to make plans. Okay, this person is making plans before everybody else is even thinking about stuff. He's like, oh yeah, that piece obviously goes really well with this, and then I put this with this other thing, and blah 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 boo, and I put this other thing there. Bam, I got this. Okay. This sort of person is what I like to call the tactician. The tactician counts his means before he goes to war. A big example of this is the song Mastermind by Nas. Like, listen to that song, listen to the lyrics. You know, these words are classical, son. They really are. And you'll see what it takes to be a tactician. Okay. A tactician is not jumping out there and just being like, woohoo, I like these pieces. Yay. The tactician is looking at the meta, analyzing the meta, deciding which steps that the current is going is worthwhile and which steps are not. This is your first number one. Like, if you see this guy, I'm sorry, you got work. You got work ahead. Okay. Number two, I like to call the scientist. The scientist might not plan ahead, but the scientist experiments and tweaks and comes back, experiments and tweaks and comes back, experiments and tweaks and comes back. The main reason that the scientist is a strong threat is that they have more empirical study in their instinct than you. Now note, not theory crafting like the tactician, but actual trial and error. They know what works, they know why it works, and they will come back, and each time they hit you, they're going to hit you harder, and then harder, and then harder, and then harder. And if they hit you light again, be concerned, because they've learned everything they wanted to learn from whatever that other punch was, and now they're building up another punch, to another technique to hit you. And then you're going to notice they're going to keep doing this thing over and over and over and over again. And then one day, when it's time for them to win something big, or they want to really show off, there's going to be this super kung fu team that comes out, and you're just like, what the, I didn't even know what happened. And then 12 minutes later, the game was over, and I can't even document my heroclix notebook what happened to me. I feel sort of dirty. You know, those guys, shoot, I'm sorry. Like, you got to catch them on the ebb and flow. Okay. And then you have to stay on top of your stuff. Okay. You really just do. You can't be like, oh, well, I'm going to just show up and do this. Like, no. Okay. Those guys are, they're scary. At the same time, the weaknesses of the mad scientist is that if their perceived hypothesis and theory is flawed, then there is an opening, because they'll state over a period of time what their main thought is. And if you come to your realization, like, no, that doesn't work because of blah, 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 and this, and this, you can come back and you can tell them that, you can tell that to that, particular type of number one, and they might go back and forth with you. And in that exchange, what you're going to gain is their methodology, so that you can interpret that when you look at stuff, and then also in response to how you're going to deal with them. But also you can see if they're willing to be convinced if they're wrong or not, or if you were mistaken in your assumption. Okay, you always have to look at it as a dialogue. Don't treat the number ones as your mortal enemies. The negative number ones, you have no character traits that you need to learn from them. The positive number ones, you need to learn from them. They need to be your friend. Do not despise the day of small beginnings, because if that guy moves away, guess who takes their mantle? Okay. Guess who dons the gi of dojo champion? It's you, homie. It's you. Okay. So hearing that, now you're like, okay, well, what's the last type? The last type I like to call is the Ronin. The Ronin is a person that is sort of like, Kang from, no, it was not Kang from Kung Fu. But it's Kane. And anyway, he walks around and he goes from place to place and he challenges different people in various, heroclix venues, and he talks with folks. He's a nomad. And then when he unsheaths his sword, there's death. And then he proceeds to walk back around and talk with people and have fun. Okay. Now you might think like, okay, so what's the advantage that this guy have? The biggest advantage that this guy has over you is diversity of experience. Diversity of experience. One thing that has made me a lot stronger heroclix player is that I just don't play the same people. I have people that I practice with. I have people I respect, but I've actually gone out of my way to go to tournaments where it's like, I don't know any of you. Let's play. Let's throw down. Okay. And in that process, I've learned stuff about myself. I've learned stuff about other people. I've gained different tech. I have people come up to me who's like, yo, Dark Logos, what's up? I remember you talked about blah, blah, blah. Here's my thoughts on this. What do you think about that, Dark Logos? Do you want to play a fun game afterward, Dark Logos? Now, sometimes I don't have time for a fun game. I won't front. I got stuff to do. Either I'm playing, relaxing my mind, or recording at a venue. So I really don't have a lot of time to like fun play unless I'm like out of it. And then if I'm out of it, then I'm deciding to myself, am I driving home that night? And do I need to take a break? Because I'm exhausted. But all in all, I've taken time to go out and sort of walk the heroclix earth and, have great conversations with people. I mean, even with the emails that I get from people at the show, it's like, yes, that is a good idea. Let me use that with my students. Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try it this weekend at this tournament, and then I'll play with things. Okay. And so really, when you look at it, the Ronin is just taking in tricks that you've never seen before, viewpoints that you've never seen before, studies and philosophies that you've never seen before, because the only thing that you do with heroclix is play with your same 8 group of people all the time. That's all you do. You never go out to rock. You never try to go to WizKids Open. You'll never try to go to Gen Con. You have limiting beliefs that are destructive, that, oh, I'm not that good, and if I go there, I'll just get rolled, so I'll stay in a world where I know I can win. I mean, and that's what people do. Okay? So, I'll be honest, that's one of the worst things that I've seen folks sort of just defeat themselves on, is that they're afraid to go out there, and they're also afraid that if they go out there, that, oh my gosh, I'll lose. It's like, well, whatever, you'll lose. So what? It's not like they're going to go tell your homies back home and then, rub it in your face. You're not going to see that person again. Okay. I'm not saying, you go to other people's areas and act like a douchebag. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the easiest people to make friends of and to learn from are people that you don't have to compete with on a daily basis. And they are the most open and the most willing to exchange ideas and thoughts. Just being 100% real. So you can start to see the two dichotomies of the number ones. And you're going to find synthesis of both positive and negatives. You're also going to find what I like to call the hyper guru, that somehow has all of the positive traits. And then you also you can pretty much what I like to call the antichrist player, who is the complete summary of all the bad nature of the number one. Okay. You have those, but I've played both of those and they are rare. They are super rare. Okay, they are so rare that they're like Mewtwo in the wild. If you see one, you're probably in a glitch. You probably hit a glitch, because that doesn't happen. Okay, and you better have a Master Ball, because capturing that sucker is going to be a battle. And I hope half your party isn't dead. Hope half your party isn't dead because you are about to lose out on a golden opportunity. So definitely take, in what I said, and start applying stuff. And I know a lot of folks are going to say, well, dark logos, most of these things, are sort of tough, and I don't have a degree in psychology to break all this stuff down to make them, figure out what type of profile this person is. I would just say guess until you start to grow the skill. All honesty. Like, I've had 15 years of debate, plus chaplaincy training and ministry training and psychology training. I have all these things so I can sort of be like, bloop, bloop, bloop. Aha, I figured out your brain. Okay. That's just how I do. I still read up on stuff about how your brain works, stress psychology, gender dynamics, all sorts of weird stuff, just because it makes my interactions more interesting, and it also allows me to provide more goods and services for you all. Okay. But if that's not in your brain, then cool. The main thing that I will say is, with all of this, don't put aside work. Don't put aside work. Okay. I finished listening to a TD Jakes sermon, and he was saying that, of people will say to him, of course, you understand all these things, you do all these things because you're successful and you're rich and this, that, and the other. And he says, where were you when I was in the WIC line? Where was you when, I'm splitting a bag of potatoes with my sister, trying to figure out how I'm going to feed my kids? Where were you then? And if you saw me then, you sure wouldn't have been with me then. So you're just trying to come in now. I'll be honest. If a lot of you saw me when I got into this game, even with the chess background and whatever, you would have never thought that I'd be the player that I am now. Never. Okay. So if I can say that about myself, then I can definitely say with you, if you put in the work and you put in the time and you make yourself vulnerable in healthy ways to other people and other outsiders, you will become a way stronger player. A good example is this, I said when we had the con in our store, Goku came down from Nebraska and beat me up. And I make jokes about it. But the one good thing that I was able to just sit and talk with Goku afterward was about Gen Con and about the meta and about the thoughts he had and about how the way things were going and about team design and, his pog tech. And so when I saw someone imitating Goku in Outrounds, I was like, oh, come on. I know the master of this. I know that trick. I talked about that trick. I didn't write the book on it, but I learned Kung Fu from that master. Let me show you how it's done. And just disassemble the kid. Okay? So did that guy that I played know that I knew Goku, who designed most of the modern age pop tech? No. No, he didn't know that. Hell, he didn't even know I was Dark Logos. Okay? But what ended up happening? Humble myself. Learn from someone else. Take that stuff in. Develop it. Understand it. Build my own team. So I countered. I got contingency plans. Bam. I talk with Mace and I'm like, yeah, Mace, I got this team. And he's like, yo, Pog Tech, let's play this. Boom, 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 boom. So there you go. I mean, so definitely, take in what I said into consideration. Okay. And then also to determine what type of number one you want to be. And if you want to be the guru, then go ahead and try. It's a hard road. I've been trying to be the guru for a while, haven't reached the path of enlightenment, nor have I found the top of the mountain. Just keep finding more mountain, like that episode of Samurai Jack. Yeah, that dates me really hard, but there's a good episode of Samurai Jack. And yes, I will be moving on to the next part soon, but this is my last little story. There's an episode of a Cartoon Network show called Samurai Jack. Probably one of the best shows that they ever had on Cartoon Network. An Asian guy voiced by a black guy. I thought that's sort of hilarious. Anyway, pretty much what ends up happening is, to beat Aku, Samurai Jack follows these three old guys up a mountain to find this enlightening power or whatever. And Jack is young and they're old. And so Jack is approaching all of the problems of the mountain as a young man would approach the problems of the mountain. And the old men are a lot less agitated. They are a lot less aggressive. They are thinking through their movements. They are taking things slowly. They're not exhausting a lot of energy because they're aware that the mountain is tall and that they have to reach the top. Okay. And what ends up happening is, like, the rains come in, and Jack just pretty much just beat up. Like, the animals have drained his energy. He's fought all these other things of the mountain. He's climbing. He's fell. His clothes are being torn, and he's just exhausted. And he has no other choice but to go back down the mountain. And the three older guys just keep going up the mountain. And when Jack gets down to the bottom of the mountain, he's still strong. He realizes how strong he was, and then he encounters something and sees how much stronger he's become after getting partway up the mountain. And the show sort of implies that he wants to go tackle that mountain again now that he knows better. And that's sort of what I want to point to you all. A lot of you all are like Samurai Jack going up the mountain. Yes, you have a cool sword. Yes, you have a purpose and a destination. Yes, you're really, really gung-ho about winning and being the best, but really sort of take, some lessons that you can't get up that mountain the way you are, and you can't get up that mountain just by forcing it. You have to take your time getting up there. You have to put in your work to get up there. You're going to have to study to get up there. And the things that you used to have to study in the past to be excellent are completely different than the things that you have to study now to be excellent. Okay. All right. So the second part of the show goes out to my man JC and Lapel. What's up, homie? Let's talk about having fun in the midst of people that are hyper meta. Okay. Always whenever I tackle this, I say, talk to your judge, man. Talk to your judge. Judges understand. Judges have to deal with this like 5 times a year. This happens 5 times a year for a judge. It's like, blah, blah, blah. This is so annoying. Blah, blah, blah. Meta. Blah, blah, blah. And usually it happens. It really happens right when a set comes out, when everyone realizes what the dumb stuff is. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, I played this, and then I rolled somebody, and then I played this other thing, and blah, 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 ha, 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 ha. This is stupid. I'm tired of this. Oh, I beat you with that now and gotten you back. And then everyone gets tired of it, and then there's the one person that doesn't get tired of it, and they just keep pushing it. Now, again, if you're that guy, fine. I'm not going to hate on you. At the same time, you have to realize you can do that until it becomes a detriment to your venue. And it becomes a detriment to your venue when people stop showing up, when people stop playing, when people don't want to engage in playing you. Like they just auto forfeit. Because at that stage, you're no longer having a chance to get better because you don't have anyone to play. I know some way that people shame folks into stop playing, which I don't ever agree with in this methodology, is that when that person comes in, they give that person the prize and then tell them to go home. That's the only reason that they've shown up, is to get the prize. And in some instances, that's worked to eventually stop that player from showing up. In my viewpoint, what that tells me is that you have a victim mentality. That you feel that you're not able to be strong enough to overcome the person. That I'm not going to use that word, but pretty much that you have a victim mentality. Okay, and that's the worst type of mentality to have when you're playing a game. that this other person, by being either more skilled or more aggressive, is bullying you. It's sort of jacked. But here's how you adapt. First off, you can create leagues, and then you create a dichotomy that happens. You have League A, which is you have to pick a lineup, or you're given a faction by pulling it out of a hat. You have to play that faction to the best of your ability. And so you have stuff like that where it provides interesting dynamic, because here's you're dealing with a situation where that person can't bring the same stuff all the time. And then with your factions, you just take out like Avengers, Bat Family. You take out Avengers, Bat Family, who else? Justice League, Teen Titan, like all the big groups. You just take all of them out, okay? And then you start forcing people to play with like more obscure stuff, okay? So then you have that. The other thing is that you have people play, and I've heard of this, where people have a figure that they pick every week that they have to play that figure, but there's like a ban list. So you might be saying like, well, Iron Pharaoh's on the ban list, entities are on the ban list, or whatever. But every week you have to play, let's say, like Cosmic Boy or something like that. So that creates another way of adding fun back into the interaction. So the first is the leagues. The second is power matching. Okay. And this is where it becomes interesting if you have two or more very strong players in a venue. What you start doing is you set up your power matching where it's strongest play strongest first. And you just continue that until like the next set comes out or something or else. You usually, if you do this during downtimes, you can't use like the WizKids event system. You have to like manually pair. And so you have strongest against strongest and weakest against weakest. And what it eventually does, it'll give the challenge to the strongest, and it will refine them. But and after a while, they'll start realizing like, okay, this is my week every week. I'm dealing with two out of my 3 games being hard versus one of my games being hard, or none of my games being hard. You start to see how that goes down. And you just have to be upfront with it. Now, some people might say that's not fair, but sometimes, you can start to see if the people are really doing it to be better or just trying to roll folks for prizes. And again, remember, listen to what I said last week. All these prizes are hella cheap. Like coming in to like, oh, I'm going to win the prize. That's $30 on eBay. I got all the prizes in maps. $30. Like, what is the value of an LE then? Not that much. What's the last most expensive LE? I already told you, like Bill Agent of AIM. That's the last really good expensive LE. I mean, Bill and Blind Owl are going on a date because they're pretty much inseparable. Okay. So by having that power matching, what it also allows for is for your weaker players to start developing and growing some confidence. So they're playing people on their same level. And then eventually you start to, reward stuff. Another thing that creates a interesting dynamic is you reward people for playing like the challenge of the week. So you have the standard game, and then you have challenge of the week. Challenge of the week is I think is probably one of the funnest things that I've done, but I've mainly done it in like after games. So it's like build a 300-point team, but no one below 50 points. And so you have to be really crafty in how you build your team. Or it's like 300-point team, no tactics, and no figures from this set. And so what ends up happening is it forces you to identify major problems, major ripples, address them. And then if people still want to play whatever, and, you know, regardless of the challenge of the week on top of the scenario, you have a separate reward for, you know, the challenge of the week. And so you make it like, you know, store credit, stuff that doesn't involve the WizKids prize kit. So like store credit, you make it, if you win so many of those, like the most amount of wins or the most amount of points with the challenge of the week, you get to determine the next challenge of the week, or you get to determine like a month's worth of what is it? A month's worth of scenarios. So what it does, it still allows those people that are hardcore to still play. But if they don't do the challenges, then the tone of the venue starts getting dictated by other people. And then they'll complain. It's like, man, I haven't done a 300 in a while. I got a rock coming up. Well, if you knew you had a rock coming up and you knew you needed to win, you know, all the challenges of the week for like the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, then you should have been doing that. You still can, you know, try out whatever you're doing, but you could have won that and set the tone going into the month of the event. Now, the other thing is, and I don't want to be like, pick on the people that are winning. The other thing is, I want to say is encourage local camaraderie for people that are going to those events, and create what I like to call the punching bag tournaments. Okay. The punching bag tournaments are important because what you're saying to everybody else, I mean, the people that are going to those events, is that you support them and you are willing to make them better, and that you encourage them in their play. Okay. That's what you're saying, is that we understand that you're going to a rock. We are your biggest fans. We're going to cheer you on. Don't do this every week, because we want to have fun too. But when it comes time for your, you know, 2 weeks before the event, or 3 weeks before the event, we are going to fully support you. If you do that, you will be surprised how things change and how those folks interact with you. Okay. Because now it's no longer that they're tackling the problem on their own. They feel that they have the support of the venue. And trust me, like before I went to the last Tulsa Rock into Gen Con, my venue went through hell. My venue went straight through hell with all the teams that I was testing. And you know what I did afterward? I just sort of toned it down. Now, some of them might say like, no, you didn't. But I really did tone it down versus the full extreme of things that I could try. Like I just was like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. I want to do this. Now, also, I will say I did get sidetracked when I saw those Sentinels. Like I've had 2 tournaments where I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to play Sentinels. Those aren't hardcore. And I was wrong. So, yeah, that also is an issue. So. All right. I hope you really enjoyed today's show. I know a lot of you like, man, give me the video. But I'm in my robe right now, and I'm relaxing. So, no video of me in the robe. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space and told me, you're number one, buddy, in my book. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. You'll hear my random musings, other stuff that I put out there. Also, you'll know when a new show comes up. You can hit the subscribe button somewhere on this magical page, and that helps me get a higher ranking on YouTube, and I would appreciate it. Tell your friends to listen to Starting Over Podcast. You can also email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Tell me if this advice seems useful. I know a lot of times when folks give advice about like the number one issue and then also the too much hardcore stuff, it can work or not work. last but not least, you can follow me on the blog, Starting Over Podcast at startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. And then you can check that out there, and it will tell you like of the, just some of my random thoughts and whatnot. All right. I'd like to thank you all for listening, and remember, we all have to start over sometime.